a big statement. Jesus told her that. See, sometimes people say, well, we're offensive and we could be abrasive, but we ain't nowhere close to abrasive with Jesus. You see what he told the woman? See, that would have been to some of us. Even some, you might be offended by something I say today, but look at what Jesus told her. He said, you worship, you know not what. He said, I know you worshiping okay, but you don't have a clue. This show you your worship have to be fine-tuned, don't it?
Right.
And that's what this feast stands for. It shows you have to fine-tune your worship. There's nothing wrong with leavening by itself. Nothing wrong with leavening. We eat it all year long, right? But he's giving you a message in this, isn't he? He's giving you a message in this. So he said, ye worship, ye know not what, right?
That's right.
And then what else did he say? Read that again in the end.
We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews.
Oh, now on the other hand, he said somebody do know. And he didn't just say he know. We know Jesus know, right? He didn't just limit it to him. He said we know. So somebody know, right? We know what we worship. Then he told you which direction it come from. Salvation. See, everybody want to talk about salvation, but do you hear what Jesus said right here? Salvation is of the Jew. So that's what I like to point that out to people when people say, well, you know, you keeping those Jewish feasts. That's what some people say. And they think it's a different way for Jews and Christians and Muslims. We can all go a different way and get to the same place, right? Not so, brothers and sisters. We cannot all go a different way and get to the same place. It don't work like that.
That's right.
He said, we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. Even salvation is of the Jews. So if you want to decipher which ones or what forms of worship you need to have, even if you don't know who the real Jews are, we know the real Jews are black people that's cursed and scattered in slavery. Jesus warned you in Revelation 3:9 about those that say they Jews and are not. But even if you don't know that, you know that they know how to get salvation, whoever they are, right? That's what he just said. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. So that lets you know your worship has to be a certain way, right? Now let's go back and see some of the stuff he told Israel, which is Jew was just short for. Leviticus 23, concerning this feast. Leviticus 23. Let's see something he told the Jews. Again, Jew just became short for Israel because the other tribes was in slavery. All the 10 tribes was in slavery. It was only Judah and Benjamin and some Levites left, so they all became known as Jews, period. But he's talking about all Israel because he gave all of his forms of worship. He gave all of his pure worship. How he wants you to serve him, he gave it to Israel. And you can't serve him your own way. That's why Joshua said, put away the gods that they were serving before and serve the Lord your God only. Put away those gods. And he said, now again, the choice is ours. That's why Joshua told you in Joshua 24, the choice is yours. Choose you this day whom you going to serve. Didn't he say that? Choose you this day whom you going to serve. But he said, as for me and my house, we going to do what?
Serve the Lord.
We going to serve the Lord. But you had to choose that, right?
Right.
You got to choose it today. Leviticus 23:1. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them.
Now, this is what I always like to point out to people, that you should be careful belittling what's in the Old Testament. Because some people belittle it, they put it down, they say, oh, Moses didn't really know. Look, this is telling you this came out of God Almighty's mouth right here. He spoke this. It didn't say Moses, because people say, well, that's the Jewish feast. Well, we saw what Jesus said, salvation of the Jews, right? Yeah, he gave it to the Jews, but it's not the Jewish feast. It belonged to the Lord. The Lord spoke it. So it said the Lord spake unto Moses. Some people say, well, that's the Mosaic law. Look, who did it say? Read it again, verse 1.
And the Lord spake unto Moses.
Moses didn't make this up, did he?
Nope.
God is talking to Moses. And what did he tell him, verse 2?
Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feast of the Lord.
Concerning the feast of the Jews? It didn't say that, did it?
Nope.
It actually said concerning the feast of the Lord, like the choir was singing, right? It's going on. The table is set at the feast of the Lord. Well, here it is right here. And this is the first one of the year that we acknowledge in today. Say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which you do what?
Which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocation.
That's a holy gathering, which we're doing right now. Go ahead.
Even these are my feasts.
Even these are his feasts, he said. This is God talking, giving you his feasts. So it shouldn't be nothing wrong if you really want to honor God, to honor these feasts. But the world has flipped things over and make us think that these don't matter, what God said don't matter, and what man has come up with, because man has come up with a whole lot of other holidays. And they make us think that that's okay. But keep reading, verse 3.
6 days shall work be done. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings.
Now that's the weekly Sabbath. That's the first holy convocation that you have every 7th day. But we're not here today for that, because today is actually the 2nd day of the week. But we're here because of an annual Sabbath, an annual feast. Go ahead, he's going to get to it. Verse 4.
These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their season. Okay, now the Lord said, now I'm getting ready to give you the ones that you proclaim in their season. Again, people say around December 25th, Jesus is the reason for the season. Look, but if you really look at it, Jesus was not born on December 25th. Any encyclopedia tell you that. He was not born on December 25th. And if you really take a second look at it, you will find out that December 25th was set up actually to worship another God, the sun god. That's what it was set up for. So God created all the seasons. I understand that. But as far as a holy season, the reason for the season, this is one right here, right? He said, these are, he getting ready to give them to us anyway. These are the ones you proclaim in their season. What's the first one you proclaim? Verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover.
Now, it's the Lord's Passover. It's not the Jews again. So don't let nobody trick you and tell you that's just for the Jews. Look, it's one Lord, brothers and sisters. One faith, one baptism is one way to please God. Jesus just told you the woman didn't know what she worshiped, right? But he said, on the other hand, we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. So it's the Lord's Passover, the 14th day of the first month. And we know how to figure that out. We know this is the 15th day of the first month. Now, the 14th was yesterday. We can figure that out because it go by the new moon. That's why it's a full moon, a full moon. You look out there, it's a full moon today. The full moon always come in the middle of God's month. It come in the middle of God's month. So this is the middle of his month, the 15th. The new moon, when the moon starts over, is the beginning of God's month. So we can calculate. Some people say, well, how you know what day is what? Well, look, you didn't question nobody when they told you when to celebrate Easter. They told you to come to church on Easter, you went. You didn't say, well, priest, Mr. Pope, well, how do you know when Easter? We didn't even say that, did we?
No.
So let's be for real. If God is telling you to do it, we can do it. We can deal with it. So he said in the 14th day of the first month that evening is the Lord's Passover. We observed that yesterday. But now, verse 6.
And on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
Now the next day is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, not to the pastor, not to nobody else, but who? The Lord. That's what it said, right?
That's right.
Then he gave you the directive. What do you do?
7 days you must eat unleavened bread.
See, he didn't say request. He didn't say, well, if you feel like it. He said 7 days you must eat unleavened bread, right?
That's right.
So that's the first thing. And this has great significance for us to this day. Go ahead, verse 7.
In the first day ye shall have an holy convocation.
See, that's today, right here. Go ahead.
Ye shall do no servile work therein.
And you don't do no work because it's a Sabbath day. Now, we got people working around here. We got people going cooking, and doing stuff and setting tables and doing all kind of stuff because that's why he says servile, because you can do what's necessary to feast. You can do that. That's the one thing you can do. He tell you that in Exodus 12. But now, let's back up to Exodus 13 because that's what we hear. Now we're going to get some understanding of it. What does it mean? Why is God telling you to keep a feast of unleavened bread? It has great meaning. And it didn't stop in the New Testament. That's one of the fallacies that we get, that it ended in the New. You know, when Jesus died, that all ended. That's what people have told us, but it's not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible because God don't change. And God, when he sets something up, it's good for the duration. And that's how awesome God is. He was setting stuff up in the beginning of time that was going to have a bearing on you all the way at the end of time. That's going to show you how you're going to get saved. Just like Jesus, we know he's the Passover lamb, even though it started in Exodus. Exodus 13 and verse 6. Go ahead.
7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and in the 7th day shall be a feast to the Lord.
See, and that's going to be on the last day. We're going to do that next Sunday. That'll be the 7th day of this feast. We will conclude it on that day. Go ahead, verse 7.
Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days.
See, again, he said, unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days. That's the first directive about this feast. Go ahead.
And there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee, neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy courts.
See, unleavened bread eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee. No leavened bread, period. Then he go further and say, neither shall there be leaven seen within all thy court. Now, some people get confused. They say, well, you know, you got to get rid of all the yeast and stuff. Look, he's referring to all forms of leavened bread. He's not referring to just the leavening agent. See, the agent is not leavened bread. So yeast can be in a whole lot of stuff, but if it hasn't leavened the bread, it don't matter. And when he said, no leavened bread shall be seen with thee, neither shall there be leaven seen with thee. That's any forms of leaven, because there's other forms of leaven besides leavened bread. That's bread product, like leavened cakes, right? You could bake a cake. You call it a cake, but it's still bread, right?
Right.
You can have some cookies, and it can be leavened. You can have donuts, it can be leavened. You can have crackers, it can be leavened. So that's what he means. He don't mean just the agent. He's talking about bread. That's why he say bread first. Because it is the feast of unleavened bread, not the feast of just unleavened stuff or food, right? It's the feast of unleavened bread. It's all about bread, brothers and sisters, because he's showing you a great message. Because one thing the Lord is showing you, man don't live by bread alone, right?
Right.
But by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. So it's about bread. Go ahead, verse 8. Go ahead.
And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, this is done because of that which the Lord did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt.
See, that's where it started at. He said, you're going to remind your son that we do this because it started when we came out of Egypt. This is what the Lord did. But it has great spiritual significance all the way down to us. And the New Testament is shedding a light on that. It didn't stop back here. That's why he said you're going to do it. Go ahead.
And it shall be for a sign unto thee upon thine hand.
Now this feast of unleavened bread is going to be for a sign for you upon your hand. What else?
And for a memorial between thine eyes.
You're going to keep it as a memorial between thy eyes. That what?
That the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt.
See, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. See, this is a sign that you are worshiping God according to as he set it up. That's why he says it's a sign for you that the Lord's law may be in your mouth. Because this is the time he brought you out of Egypt. And we went over that on the Passover. He did not bring his people out of Egypt and tell them, look, you free from Pharaoh. See you later. Go on about your business. No, he didn't do that, did he? He brought them out of Egypt so now they can worry about only serving him. They didn't have to worry about Pharaoh no more once they came through that Red Sea. They was done with Pharaoh. But go ahead, verse 10.
Thou shalt therefore keep this ordinance in his season from year to year.
See, you keep it in his season. And believe it or not, Jesus was the one back here giving this ordinance. He was God before he became a man.
That's right.
He was the one talking to Moses all the time. You ain't heard from the Father at all. Jesus was the one. That's why the Jews got mad at Jesus, the real Jews. They got mad at him when he said, like he told Moses in Exodus 3. Before he told him his name, Jehovah. See, that was Jesus. So if you say you're a Jehovah's Witness, you might as well say you're a Jesus witness. Because that was him back there. People don't know that. But he told Moses in Exodus 3, Moses said, what's your name? He said, I am that I am. Therefore, you tell them, I am sent you. Then Jesus turned around and said the same thing. In John 8, he started talking to the Jews. He started talking about Abraham rejoiced to see something. They said, man, what you talking about? See, they hated Jesus. The religious people hated Jesus. That's one thing you should take note of. They They told Jesus, they said, man, you ain't 50 years old. You talking about you seen Abraham. You read John 8 on your own. Jesus turned around and said, look, let me tell you something. Before Abraham was, I am.
That's right.
And they picked up bricks, wanted to kill him because they knew what he meant. They knew what he meant. But that showed you that was Jesus back here doing all of this. He gave these feast days. So, and he set it up as a memorial of stuff even in the future. So it wasn't just for the past. But let's look at it. Matthew 16. Matthew